What's up, real world climbers? Thank you so much for clicking on this video. We're back in the mega garage. We're building real world climbing headquarters number 6, and today we are starting the next chunk of wall. This whole section over here is going to be a 15-degree overhanging section, and it's going to eventually tie into our 30-degree wall with some triangulation here. It's going to be sweet. It's going to add a ton of square footage, a ton of variety to our angles, because we have a vert section now way over there to the left that you can't see. We've got this massive 30-degree wall right here that goes up. It's 16 feet of vertical climbing distance and 8 feet wide. And then all of our transition. It's going to be amazing. If you can't tell, I'm super hyped about this. If you haven't already checked out the other videos in this series where we're building these, I would love it for you to check that playlist that is down in the description and start from the beginning. But make sure you come back to this video. It's going to be awesome. One other shout out I want to give is that even though I'm the one primarily doing the builds so far or on camera, this is a joint venture with my buddy Jack. To catch you up to speed just a little bit is that Jack and I have actually partnered. We both took down all of our walls. He had a major living room gym setup and I had my garage setup. And this entire workshop build here, I believe, is eventually going to turn into climbing. The whole workshop concept was to be built for Jack to build his kit airplane and then have some climbing around the outsides. Not sure exactly what's going to turn out with the airplane. Kind of a confusing process for Jack. So what we plan on doing with this 15-degree wall is I plan on having it be offset a little bit. So it's not going to come right up next to the 30-degree wall. It's going to come offset maybe about 1.5 feet. And then it's going to come up and it's going to finish right underneath this rail for the garage door. So that will allow the garage door to still be used and moved up, but it'll allow us to have a good 11 feet of climbing, I believe, here, and then all this transition stuff. And it works out perfect to be right at about 15 degrees if I go straight into the framing of the building. So the build out of this 15-degree wall does have to be done a little bit differently because I'm not attaching it at the header point directly to where the climbing finishes. So I have to do tiebacks that are going to go up into kind of the creases of this building and tiebacks into here as well, which I intended on doing anyway, not only for additional stability, but also because I'm going to be able to sneak in through here and get access to the back of the wall for any repaired T-nuts that I need to do. So I wanted to be able to have like some kind of flooring or some kind of situation where I can walk across here. So there'll be some tie-ins here. The other part that makes this a little bit unique is that instead of tying into the metal beams like I did on the 30-degree wall, I want it to be offset but still stable. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using these brackets that I've used in the past and anchoring them to the metal here. Got to cut out a little of this foam first. Essentially attaching them here with self-tapping metal screws, and then having the studs go directly into that. And then the top connection point is going to have a traditional like top plate, like just 2x4 that's going to connect all the studs together across the top. But the anchor point, like I said before, is going to go up slightly into the crease of the building there. So what I'm getting at there is I actually plan on building the frame first and then raising it into place and attaching it to my tie-in points rather than trying to do one board at a time and then trying to get the top plate. At least that's my plan, so we'll see how that goes. There's two main reasons why we want to have this offset from the actual frames. Like, it would be very convenient to just attach things to this frame like I did on the 30-degree. However, reason number one is that both Jack and I really liked the idea of not having the arete of any walls be like a flat 90 degrees that you could just, bump up on, or have like any holds on there feel like jugs when you reach around the corner. So we really like the idea of having these obtuse kind of angles So we're gonna have a big obtuse angle over there on the far left, on the other side of the 30-degree wall. But like here, we'll have one that does this obtuse gradual angle into where it meets up with the 15-degree wall. Reason number 2 lives up here in this garage door rail with the corner, this kind of rounded corner that the garage door goes up. We don't really want to impede on that, and so I wanted to start farther over on that side. So I think I've calculated that if I come over from the edge of the wall 1.5 feet, that will give enough clearance up there on the rail that we were talking about. That means that 8 feet will be 1.5 feet away from that over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a Sharpie here and mark where I want the outside edge of this plate to go. So that's plate number 1. Plate number 2 needs to be 2-foot centers. So from the outside of this to 2 feet is going to be plate number 2, center of plate number 2. And then each of these remaining ones, until we get to the end, is going to be 2-foot centers. All right, now we're ready to screw these in. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hammer out these tabs outward a little bit, because the wall is going to be angled at 15 degrees. I'm actually going to hammer them out more than 15 degrees and then hammer them back in / use the screw hole in there when I attach the wood. All right, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the wood between here that my tie-in points are going to connect to. I want to have it ready to go so that as I raise the wall up into place and slip the studs down into the connection points, I want to have it ready with the tie-in points already ready, so that way I can just zip it in. I'm planning for it to be the same level as it is over here on the 30-degree wall. So that way it's just kind of a level floor. So the more and more I think about this, the more I'm rethinking my order of operations. So again, I'm thinking ahead of time, and I'm planning, okay, I'm going to have this 8-foot wide and pretty much close to 11-foot frame, 11-foot high frame. So in order to get that up into place here, I'm going to have it all built and blocking already put in and all that stuff in place already. So as I lift it up, I'm not going to want to have to like do the weird connections. I'm just going to want to be able to connect it. So what I'm thinking of is already having the cross members, these additional stability pieces, already screwed in and sticking out here, so that as I lift it up, I can literally just screw it into the sides of the studs and be ready to go. So I've marked out where I'm going to put those, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them to length, install them, and have them ready, or at least having the 2 outside ones ready. Something like that. So this just brings me to the whole, like, have a plan, but be flexible and be ready to make adjustments, and just really think about what you're doing before you take those steps and make those cuts. Or like in this case, think about what I'm doing before I'm like sitting here holding a wall up because I'm not able to attach it at the top, holding a wall up. How am I going to get it stabilized? Nice. I feel ready. Now let's start building the frame. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to nip off the ends of each of these studs here. These are 12 foot long, so I know they're long enough to hit my about 11 feet total, or 130 inches total. So I'm going to nip off the ends, but at a 15-degree angle. That will be my bottom edge, or top edge, I guess it doesn't really matter. I'll measure my 128.5 inches. That's 130 minus an inch and a half for my top plate. I got the miter saw set at 15 degrees. And I'm just going to nip off the end of each of these. All right, so I've got my studs here laid out. Not really obviously laid out, but here I got this 8-foot length of 2x4 that I'm gonna use for the top plate. It's quite straight. It's been used on a previous wall for, I believe, the exact same thing, or maybe it was a bottom plate. So it's really good shape, really straight. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark off my 24 inches, my 2 feet off of centers that I did. So obviously the ends are easy. That's just gonna go to the end. But my 24 off centers, I'm gonna do the same as I did down at the bottom. So then I can screw this into place. It'll have it be the correct 8-foot width with the correct spacing so that all the studs go straight into my connections at the bottom. So then the beautiful thing about this is I can lay this out up here on the end, and I've got my 15-degree taper already in place. So then I can just line up the studs. Right about there. I'm just going to worry about getting it flush to the bottom of the wood. I did pre-screw in all these screws in each of the locations here. And if you haven't figured out, I love doing that. It really is helpful for when you're all by yourself. Good. Okay, then I think I'm going to do the outside ones first. So now I'm going to measure for the blocking, and I'm going to want the blocking itself to be at the 4-foot marks for the sheets of plywood that we're going to put up here. We'll have a 4-foot and a 4-foot, and then approximately another 3 feet. All right, so I've done all my blocking cutting. I've got 4 that are meant for the outside because they're at one specific length, 21 3/4 inch. Because again, the outside is counted on the off center, so you lose that 1.5 inches. And then 4 for the middles. So literally I'm just gonna go at my 4-foot markers and throw in the blocking right now. And I want them flush, so like there's a little bit of, like the garage floor isn't completely even. So I'm gonna make sure that they're flush. Good. So that's an outside one, so then I need a middle one here. All right, so I think you get the picture. I'm going to continue to do this. I'm running low on battery, so I want to try and make sure I can document this whole section. So I'm going to just assume you know what I'm doing with the rest of these blocks. And there we go. We've got all the blocking in place. All right, so I think we're ready to lift the frame into place. I've got a couple helpers to do that. Okay, we're ready to go.
It's too high. Oh, that one's on.
All right, so I got myself into a little bit of a predicament in that I did the math, but I didn't like do the math. And here's what I ended up doing is I ended up thinking, oh, because this wall is at 30 degrees and this wall is at 15 degrees, that I can just cut the amount in half. However, what I didn't take into consideration was that I have a 1-foot kicker on this one and I have no kicker on this one. And so it made it so that these pre-built attachment points that I was planning on just screwing into, they're not long enough. If they were too long, that would have been an easy fix, but they weren't long enough. So I ended up just kind of fixing something temporary here that will allow me to attach them while it's in the up position. So it is a little bit of annoying that I didn't just get it perfect this first time. Can't be perfect all the time, I guess. So it's a little bit annoying, but at the same time, I think it'll be a relatively easy fix. So what I've done is I've secured all the bottoms, and then I've got this temporary thing here that's kind of holding it in the general area that I want So it's holding it up so that I don't need to have constant helpers. And then I'm going to work my way over from one side to the other, making it at 15 degrees exactly. Whew. It's not exactly 15 degrees on this side. However, it is kind of exactly where I want it to align with the rail. So it's actually 17 degrees. But 17 degrees gets it to be aligned right underneath that rail, which is where I want it. So I think we're going to call it a 15 degrees, but it's actually 17 degrees. And that is going to be okay. Okay by me. It does come up underneath the rails, and it's very even with the rails, which is what I want. I feel like I could have maybe gotten another inch or inch and a half out of it, and that maybe would have, if I would have done an inch and a half more of length, it would have changed the angle slightly to be maybe even closer to 15, but I think it's really good. It's pretty solid so far, but again, it's not attached at the top anywhere. So what I have to do next is I have to do my attachment points up top before I feel like it's safe enough to climb on. And keep in mind, it will also be attached over here in several spots too, so that'll stop a lot of the lateral flexion. And if I need to, I can tie something in up here to stop lateral flexion as well. Because I really just need to be able to get through over here to the side to get access to there. This 2x12 here I have is going to fit basically pretty perfect here. All right, so we're going to give this first attachment point. This is one of the hardest ones because it's at the most angled. So I got to see if I can get this into the metal at such an angle. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to get it in a position first before screwing in the metal by screwing in on the wood side first. So that's solid on the wood side. Now I got to go to the metal side. I got the metal tapping screw pre-drilled into the wood. Now I got to get into the metal. I feel a lot better about that. I'm going to go ahead and add this piece for stability in first. All right, so now I've got all three on top of each other, so I'm just lining up the top one now. I'm aligning them basically as perfect as I can. And then I'm going to take these clamps here and I'm going to really cinch them down and lock them into place. And then I've got this paddle bit. It's got this nice little starter on there. And then it's a brand new bit, so it's nice and sharp. And that's probably my number one thing is like, I know it's not nice to buy new bits all the time, but man, things go so much better when you have nice sharp bits. And so now literally I'm just going to eyeball this. This isn't a systems board. It's not going to be used on a systems board over there. So I don't care for it to be like exact, but I definitely want a lot more T-nuts on these outsides. In the rows that already have T-nuts, there's plenty, so I'm not going to worry about that. But I'm going to kind of like alternate where I put them on the in-betweens here. So, but this is going to get a lot more T-nuts than it already has. I'm thinking like, you see how I've got these two here? I'll go like in between, then I'll skip one, and then I'll go here. That should be plenty, right? And then I'm trying to go as straight as possible too. I have seen people do this with like actual drill press, or they create like a jig, like a block that already has a straight hole in it, and then go straight down. But I think for what we're trying to accomplish here, this is good enough. Good enough for who it's for, because it's for me and Jack. And any of you that decide to join us. Oh, one other thing while I'm doing this is the other reason. Not only does it save time by drilling 3 boards at the same time, if you can do that, it saves so much time. But also, when you stack them together, it minimizes the amount of blowback in the back of the, so like when you punch through these, it'll like blow off some of the back of the plywood, and this minimizes that. All right, so now we got them all done. They're all drilled. Clean up our mess. And now we're ready to flip them over and hammer some T-nuts in. Now when I was drilling it, I like to have it up on something, obviously, so that it doesn't punch through and like dull my drill bit on the concrete or whatever my surface is. However, when I'm hammering it, I want it to be flat on the ground. So I'm getting rid of, it's really best for when you're hammering the T-nuts to not have it be bouncing around. And this is the bottom one. This bottom one has a little bit of the blowback. The other 2 did not have really any blowback. So then I just use like either the side of a hammer, or in this case like the rubber of my shoes is really good if I go against the grain for popping off the little flakes of blowback. Very minor though. This is actually really good. And you just make sure they go in straight. All right, I think you get the idea. I spared you all the extra hammering there, but it took a lot. I actually added a lot more T-nuts than I thought. So much so that I ran out of like just my spare T-nuts that were sitting unused. So I had to salvage some from some old scrap pieces of plywood that I'm not sure are going to be used or not. So I just salvaged the T-nuts and was finally able to fill these sheets. So now it's time to put the sheets up. I got this 2x6 setting down here that I'm gonna rest the center of the plywood on for this bottom layer. I want the board to be off of the ground just in case there's moisture that would wick into it, and I don't want that to happen. So I am going to just set it on there and screw it in, and then I'll pull that out from underneath it once it's in place.
Which side should I do first?
Doesn't matter. We're going for perfection here, baby. Perfection, baby. How high do we gotta go? A lot higher? Are you ready? See how much the heavier and the higher one was the easier one because we got it lined up the first time. All right, so there we go. We got 2 full sheets on. The last sheet is going to come in just a few minutes in YouTube world, but it's not going to be able to get done tonight in real life for 2 reasons. Number 1, I need to salvage some more T-nuts, and we're going to have to cut it to the exact height. And then I also want to sand and round the top to make it nice and comfy. So that's coming in just a matter of seconds in YouTube world. All right, we're back. This time it's nighttime, and I've finally got that last sheet of plywood ready, and we're gonna cut that down to size and hammer in a bunch of T-nuts and get it installed in the 15-degree wall. And then while I have this down here, I'm going to use the orbital sander here and round my edges. So I can just round this edge and it'll have a nice little kind of smooth radius for finishing on the top of the wall if I want to. So I'd rather do this now while it's off the wall than when it's up on the wall. Yeah, super smooth. Super smooth, love it. All right, here we go. Last sheet of plywood on the 15. Come your way.
That's perfectly lined for size.
All right, clamp it then. All right, so that is the complete 15-degree wall, seamless edges, lots and lots of T-nuts, and even a finishing edge up here on the top. So that's gonna wrap up this video. Make sure you stay tuned for the future videos where we're gonna be doing our adjustable board, which is gonna be super epic. We'll also have a video where we do all of these transitions. So if you're liking what you're seeing in these videos, I would love it if you would click the chains on the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video.